Welcome back. To make your drawing look even more three-dimensional, you will need to add shadows and shading. In this class, I like to keep things consistent. So when we are using a light source, we are actually going to replicate the light source that I already have. I call it 3 p.m. and I denote it with an arrow. Because think about the shadows at 3 p.m. They're stretched out, but they're not very long. They still have some definition, but they gradually change. And that is what we're going to do. For this exercise, we have to imagine that we are working with a perfect white shape and a perfect white background and only one light source. That way we know how the light works on an object. When you're working with the rectangle cube, you want to focus on keeping things as consistent as possible. The top will not get any shading because this side will get a little bit of a shadow created by this edge. We will shade this lightly. This side is the opposite of the light source. This will get our darkest shading. And then our shadow will gradually go from dark right next to the edge of the shape and gradually move its way to light and to nothing. When you have your guide, I told you to make 3 marks. This third mark is going to help us with the shadow. When we are starting with our shading, we always want to start with lighter pressure. Please remember, it is easier to add more graphite than it is to take it away. We will also use cross-hatching as well as blending with smudging paper or a smudging tool. So again, the top will not get any shading. This side will get light shading. So if you are working with light shading, you want very, very, very light pressure so you can add with the cross-hatching. You want to make it even. It will not gradually change or use gradation. I like starting on one side and working very lightly. Start drawing some lines. They do not have to be perfect. In fact, the imperfections are going to help fill in the graphite in the in-between areas. I also like using the edge of my pencil. Then I will work on the next side. Maintain control, but if you accidentally go over an edge, you can gently erase it. Also, working with light pressure means you're not breaking the fibers of the paper. So if you did have to erase, you won't see that line, that lighter line from the indentation. You're not just going to go 2 ways, you're going to go at an angle this way. Cross-hatching allows you to fill in graphite in those small areas, and then you can use a smudging tool to gently move the graphite into the completely lighter areas. I will also go in the other direction. The more directions you go, the more even your shading is going to be. Now you saw I went over the edge there. I'm not going to erase it because this is going to be a darker shaded area. So it's okay that it went over there. Drawing is a process. even the best artists, we're always learning. It is said that Van Gogh felt he was never complete with the Mona Lisa because it was always a work in progress. And I always like that idea. So whenever we are grading and evaluating our work, it's not the end result, it's just part of the process. The next side is going to get the darker shading. Because it's darker, we'll still use lighter pressure, but we can push down a lot harder than we did with this side. I will work with medium pressure, and again, working on the side. Now when I'm working on this side, I really need to be able to control my pencil a lot better. One direction and another. I have my paper taped down right now, so it's easier to record this, but please move your paper around. You have that freedom to do so. I'm just moving my body around so I can get every angle. Shading takes a lot of patience. So don't try to rush this process. And look, I've been shading for about 7 minutes now. You're probably getting a little bit bored with this. So I will do just a little bit more before I show you where the shadow goes and how to make it gradual. You will be using cross-hatching when you are working with a shadow as well. And if I see any areas that look significantly lighter or darker, I will add pressure to even them out. Again, maintaining the cross-hatch technique. Then I'm going to use my guide. I'm going to line up this guide with the very bottom edge of the same side as your light source. And then I'm going to extend your shadow until number 3. Then you want to make a shadow parallel and the same length to it. So I will do this. Now this may be a little bit confusing, but remember how I made my line to go between marks 1 and 3? I flip it over and I just have to remember I'm going to go from 3 to 1, or I can start at 1 and go to 3. Making the guide parallel to this line to the best of my ability. I will draw that line, stopping at 1. I'm not going out any further. So the length of these lines are the same. You may not look it, but they are. Then you start with making your lines for the shadow, starting with medium pressure and going lighter. And you want to fade to nothing. When you're cross-hatching this way, you apply the pressure and then lift up. Apply and lift up. Apply and lift up. And if you make the lines different lengths, that will help. Then you can also, same thing, as you get further away from the light source, you lift up, going in this direction as well as this direction. That's my timer to keep me focused. And then when you blend, that will help fill in those open areas to show a nice gradual change here, or a nice smooth surface here. And there you have it, a shaded rectangle cube.